King Charles has officially signed the abdication papers. The crown is no longer his. In a shocking overnight twist, Prince William and Catherine are now set to be crowned immediately. No warning, no delay. The monarchy has shifted, and the world is witnessing history rewrite itself in real time. The sudden decision King Charles signs the papers. It happened behind tightly sealed doors. In a quiet, candle-lit chamber deep within Buckingham Palace, King Charles III put pen to paper, and with a single signature surrendered the crown. Witnesses were few. His most trusted legal counsel, senior aides, and one cleric stood by as history turned in silence. No cameras, no press, just the echo of the pen and the weight of a monarchy shifting in real time. This wasn't a speech or a symbolic step back. This was the real thing, a formal, legally binding abdication deed crafted in the language of constitutional law, filled with clauses that detailed what he leaves behind and what is stripped from him. It renounced not only power, but the right to reclaim it. Was it sudden? Not entirely. Insiders now reveal Charles had been contemplating this for months, quietly meeting with royal advisors, lawyers, and even foreign dignitaries. His health, public pressure, and the growing strength of William and Catherine's popularity all played a role. Some say he felt cornered, others believe he wanted to control his exit before others could. The timing was strategic, executed overnight before morning headlines could catch. When palace staff were instructed to go silent, scheduled briefings were cancelled, and all senior press officials were moved to emergency mode. By sunrise, whispers had already reached journalists. Within hours, chaos had begun. Phones lit up, royal watchers were stunned, the public even more. So no monarch in modern memory has left the throne voluntarily, not like this. And now, with that single signature, King Charles is out and William and Catherine are in a constitutional earthquake. How abdication works. What King Charles has just done is rare and monumental in royal law. Abdication means the monarch fully renounces the throne, relinquishing all sovereign powers, titles, and privileges. It's not retirement. It's not delegation. It's fine. No, it ends the reign, triggers succession, and rewrites royal history. But in the British constitutional system, a signature alone is not enough for abdication to become law. It must go through Parliament. A formal act must be passed recognizing and validating the monarch's decision. Until that happens, everything hangs in the balance, legally, politically, emotionally. The last time the UK experienced this was in 1936, when Edward VIII gave up the crown to marry Wallis Simpson. That abdication sparked a crisis, reshaped the royal line, and left a permanent scar on the monarchy. Now William is the heir, and if Parliament approves the abdication, he becomes monarch instantly. That's the rule of succession. The moment the throne is vacated, it passes to the next in line. No delay, no vote, just instant power transfer. Still, legal experts warn that Parliament's approval is not automatic. There may be objections. Critics might question Charles' state of mind, the pressures behind his decision, or even the authenticity of the paperwork. Delays or possible hearings could be called, and in a worst-case scenario, the entire process could be challenged in court. This is more than a royal shake-up. It's a constitutional reset, with the world watching. The crown itself is in motion, and nothing is guaranteed. The papers are signed, but the real transition, that's just beginning. William the Sovereign, instant king, heavy crown. There was no grand speech, no procession, no royal trumpet blast. With King Charles's abdication papers signed, Prince William became King William V instantly, automatically, and without a single vote. It's the law of the crown. Once the throne is vacant, the next heir ascends without delay. But while the law may be clear, the moment is anything but simple. Just hours after the news broke, palace officials confirmed that William have accepted the crown. No hesitation, no delay. Those close to him say he was calm, but tense, fully aware of what had just been placed on his shoulders. A monarchy and transition, a public in shock, and a legacy still defined by his mother's name, Diana. William's legitimacy isn't questioned. He was already first in line. But the timing, the speed, and the mystery surrounding Charles' exit have created unease. Some wonder if he was ready. Others say he's been preparing for this his entire life. What's clear is that he now holds the powers of a sovereign head of state, commander-in-chief, and symbol of continuity, whether he wanted it or not. And standing beside him is not just a wife, but the Queen. Catherine's elevation from princess to queen In an instant, Catherine went from Duchess of Cambridge to Queen Catherine, not just by title, but in the eyes of millions around the world. She had no time to prepare for this moment. No rehearsal, no grand coronation, not yet. But the crown, symbolically and emotionally, was already on her head. And if William is the new king, it's Catherine who now becomes the face of grace, resilience, and modern royalty. Her status changed immediately. Behind-the-scenes staff began reprinting royal stationery, updating her security detail, and reassigning patronage of. She now represents Britain abroad, receives foreign dignitaries, and will soon take on ceremonial roles once reserved for Queen Elizabeth. But her rise comes with pressure. Not everyone accepts it. Some loyal to Charles and quietly to Camilla see Catherine's sudden elevation as too fast, too convenient, even calculated. Palace have already fielded murmurs of discontent from traditionalist voices, but the overwhelming public response, unmistakable support. Social media erupted with trending hashtags like #QueenCatherine and #RightfulQueen. Thousands flooded the gates at Windsor and Kensington, leaving flowers, cards, and photos of Diana beside Catherine's portraits. Too many. She isn't just rising to the throne, she's carrying Diana's unfinished journey forward. Insiders say Catherine has remained calm and measured, but emotional behind closed doors. She knows the weight of this moment, said one source. She's not just stepping into a role, she's stepping into history. And with the world watching, every word she speaks, every step she takes now defines the new monarchy. Charles, his legacy from king to former monarch. King Charles III is now no longer sovereign. And just like that, after decades waiting a short reign of turbulence and one signature, he is now a former monarch. But how will history remember him? For some, Charles's reign will be remembered as brief but bold. He took the crown after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, stepping into the impossible shoes of a woman who reigned for 70 years. At first, his ascension was greeted with tradition, dignity, and cautious optimism. He was seen as a bridge, a monarch of transition between the old empire and a more modern, streamlined crown. But behind that composed image, Charles's reign was filled with strain. Health concerns surfaced almost immediately. Then came the public tension with Prince Harry, the awkwardness around Camilla, his acceptance, and growing whispers that the monarchy was no longer connecting with the people. And through it all, Charles struggled to modernize without alienating tradition, a delicate line that became harder to walk with each the month. Now, with his abdication, his legacy is torn in two. One side will say he stepped down with grace, that he chose duty over pride, and put the stability of the crown ahead of his own ego. In doing so, he paved the way for a new generation of royals led by William and Catherine to connect with the public in a way he never could have the other side. It is less forgiving to them. Charles's reign was a failure of promise. He waited his entire life for the throne, only to give it up after just a few years. Some believe his decision to step down wasn't normal, but strategic, a quiet response to crumbling popularity. The public's adoration for William and his own growing physical frailty. And what now? He is no longer His Majesty, but whether he will retain a title such as King Emeritus or Duke of Edinburgh remains undecided. Constitutionally, he holds no power. Ceremonially, he may appear at certain events, but practically Charles is retired from royal life. And that in itself is unprecedented in modern times. Will he live in seclusion? Or will he try to stay visible through charity work, environmental advocacy, or quiet public appearances? Some insiders suggest Charles may move to a private estate, possibly Grove, to live out his days away from the glare of media. Others believe he might try to act as a quiet advisor behind the scenes. Though how welcome that will be under William's rule remains to be seen. One thing is certain: Charles has exited with more questions than answers. The image of the former Prince of Wales, once the longest-serving heir in British history, now fades into the background. The man who was born to rule walked away from the throne, and as the crown moves forward, so must his legacy. However history chooses to define it, Camilla, his fate shadowed or overthrown. Queen Camilla, once the most controversial woman in Britain, now faces a new kind of uncertainty. With Charles's abdication, the question many are quietly asking is what becomes of Camilla. Unlike her husband, Camilla was never crowned Queen Ragland. Her title was Queen Consort, derived from marriage, not bloodline. And with Charles stepping down, or title and role enters a constitutional grey zone. Insiders confirmed that there are heated debates behind palace walls. Should she be given a soft landing as Queen Dowager, the traditional title for a widow or former consort? Or will she be encouraged or forced to step out of royal life entirely for Camilla? This is not just a title, it's a decades-long journey. From being seen as the third party in Diana's marriage, 2 years of silence, then strategic appearances, and finally full public acceptance, her path to becoming queen consort was a masterclass in royal rehabilitation. But now it may all be erased in one night. With William and Catherine rising, Camilla Place becomes more symbolic than necessary. She holds no constitutional role. The public has already begun shifting focus entirely to Catherine, who they now overwhelmingly embrace as the true queen. Hashtags like #QueenCatherine and #NewEra are dominating online conversation, while Camilla, his name has barely been mentioned in coverage of the transition. That silence speaks volumes. There's speculation that she may retreat to Remill House or private estate in Wiltshire, far from the spotlight of royal life. Others say she may retain some limited ceremonial role, perhaps in charitable foundations or church matters, but few expect her to play a central part in the reign of King William V. Still, Camilla may not go quietly. Those close to her say she feels betrayed not by Charles, but by the system that once worked so hard to rehabilitate her image. After all, she stood beside Charles during the toughest years of his public life. She endured decades of scrutiny, invasive press, and relentless comparison to Diana. To now be potentially erased is a bitter pill. One former royal aide reportedly said she waited for a crown that was never really hers, and now it's been taken away without a word. Whether Camilla chooses graceful retreat or quiet resistance remains to be seen. But in this new royal order, one thing is clear. Camilla chapter may be closing and her name fading from the center of the story. Palace chaos. Behind the scenes, power struggles. While the world gasped at the abdication inside Buckingham Palace, chaos exploded. Within minutes of Charles signing the papers, senior aides were split into factions, some shocked, others furious, and a few quietly whispering. Finally, behind the polished halls and golden staircases, the true royal battle had begun. There are insiders who supported Charles's exit, discreet power brokers who saw the writing on the wall and wanted to preserve the monarchy's image. These were the ones urging Charles to step down with dignity before illness or scandal did it for him. According to one source close to the royal household, the goal was to protect the crown, even if it meant sacrificing the king. But there were others, loyalists, many older courtiers and senior household staff, who were completely blindsided. They believed Charles would never abdicate. They saw William as capable, but not quite ready, and most critically, they feared that Catherine's influence, its growing by the day, would shift the balance of power to far too fast. In the hours after the signing, the palace reportedly entered lockdown mode. Communications staff scrambled to manage the leak. Emergency meetings were held in multiple locations. Internal emails flew back and forth with red flags, updates, and codes to prevent exposure. There were even reports that security was temporarily reassigned to prevent potential breaches during the handover. Amid all of this, briefings turned into battles. Leagues were met with counter-leaks. One memo described the abdication as a planned constitutional evolution, while another leaked from within Charles. His former team suggested the decision was rushed and emotionally driven. And then there were the lawyers. Legal advisors worked through the night to finalize transitions of authority, ensuring that William would be covered under all existing constitutional powers. There was also talk of temporary regency measures in case Parliament delayed validating the abdication. But that idea was quickly buried. Any delay now would risk public trust collapsing completely. In the middle of this frenzy, Camilla team reportedly clashed with senior aides demanding clarity on her status and role in the new regime. If you push her out, one insider said, you were racing a queen, and queens don't vanish quietly. But it may already be too late. William and Catherine's circle, younger, media savvy, and ruthless in their organization, have taken the reins. The palace for now looks composed on the outside, but inside, it's a battlefield, and the new monarch hasn't even been crowned yet. Media uproar, headlines, reactions, scandals. As dawn broke, the British press was already in full frenzy mode. By 6 a.m, nearly every major outlet had the same word splashed across their front pages. Abdicated, the tabloids went further. Crown shocker, William rises, Charles walks away. The story traveled faster than any royal update, and years, breaking into headlines across America, Europe, Australia, and Asia. Within hours, news anchors stumbled over themselves trying to explain the constitutional process, while viewers were glued to rolling coverage that felt more like a drama series. And matter, social media ruptured on TikTok. Hashtags like #Queen Catherine, #Long Live William, and #Charles gone soared into the millions. Some users celebrated the shift, calling it a fresh start for the monarchy. Others questioned the speed and secrecy, asking, was this a peaceful transition or a palace coup? Clips of William's first public appearance, solemn, composed yet visibly shaken, went viral. So did videos of Catherine smiling gently as she greeted crowds outside Windsor Castle, many of whom were holding signs with messages like "You are a queen now." But with celebration came scandal. Journalists dug deep into the timeline of Charles's decision. Reports emerged that palace aides had known about his intent to abdicate for weeks, but withheld the information from senior ministers. Some even alleged that Camilla was kept out of key meetings, fueling rumors that she was being systematically cut out. Royal biographers appeared across primetime panels, comparing Charles's move to Edward VIII's abdication in 1936, but with one key difference. This wasn't about love, it was about power, legacy, and the rising public pressure for a monarchy that reflects the new generation. Still, not everyone was convinced. Critics warned that the transition felt too smooth to rehearse, suggesting that this was long planned by William's inner circle. Others hinted at internal disagreements, so sharp Parliament may need to intervene to mediate future succession planning. And then came the leaked screenshots of private palace texts circulated online. Hints of conflict between Charles, his advisors, and William's strategists. One even showed a message reading, "He's out. Start rolling the succession plan, W and C are ready." Whether real or manipulated, the effect was the same. The public saw not a peaceful passing of the torch, but a monarchy in motion, and possibly in revolt. Now, as the dust swirls and the narrative shifts, by the hour the world watches for the next move. Because in this media war, whoever speaks next controls the story. Legal and constitutional battle, objections and courtroom drama. What began as a private act of abdication is now spiraling into a public legal battle that could rock the monarchy to its core. Within 48 hours of the official announcement, murmurs turned into motions. Lawyers representing former royal advisors concerted. 2 shuttle scholars and even a handful of MPs have begun raising formal objections, not necessarily against William, but against how Charles's abdication was executed. The central questions: was the abdication valid? Was Charles acting under duress? Was his mental or physical state compromised? According to leaked documents from inside the palace legal office, there is no evidence of Parliament's prior approval at the time of signing. While the monarchy operates under the demise of the crown principle, meaning power passes immediately, formal abdication still requires legislative action. Without it, some are claiming the transition is technically unconstitutional. Adding fuel to the fire, reports have emerged that not all royal signatories were present or even informed of the abdication deed before it was enacted. Prince Edward, for example, was reportedly on a diplomatic tour in Canada and learned of the news from a journalist, not the palace. Then there's Camilla. His legal team sources confirm her attorneys have begun reviewing the abdication document line by line, particularly examining how it affects her rights, protection and access to shared property, royal privileges and ceremonial duties. One insider put it plainly: if Camilla is out, she won't go quietly, she'll go to court. Legal pundits have warned that any courtroom battle would not just be a PR disaster, it could lead to an outright constitutional crisis. There is currently no clear law in modern British history that outlines the exact consequences of a disputed abdication followed by an immediate ascension. Some members of Parliament are already calling for an emergency debate. A few backbenchers are demanding a temporary suspension of royal appointments until the abdication is formally recognised under law. If that happens, it could delay William's coronation or worse, place his role as king in legal limbo. And yet, the palace remains silent. Their strategy, insiders say, is to act quickly and with confidence, asserting that the monarchy's power lies in continuity, not confusion. By already referring to William and Catherine with their new titles or releasing public images of them in duty, the palace hopes to override the legal storm with symbolism. But that may not be enough. Not this time. If the lawyers prevail, if the abdication is challenged or amended, the royal family may face its greatest test since the abdication of Edward VIII, and this time the consequences won't just affect the crown, but the very legitimacy of the new royal era. After the crowning, the new royal era begins. The dust has settled, the palace is still catching its breath. He had outside the gates, a new chapter has already begun. With Charles gone and William officially recognized as sovereign, at least in action if not